Today we're having the Shir, Dach Yomi, Torah Or, and Daf Tes on my base. We're in the middle of the Maimer, Mayim Rabim, explaining about how by being in this world and having to overcome the difficulty of worrying about Parnasa, worrying about making money, so not only does it not take away your love for Hashem, it brings you to even deeper love for Hashem. So we spoke about how that's the idea of the Mabul, that the Mabul was water which not only removed the bad people from the world, but it purified the world so that the world should become much better after the Mabul, so that the whole world became elevated. It's the same thing through the many waters of Tidras HaParnasa, of a person having to worry about physical things. So it only brings a person to a deeper love for Hashem when they realize how incomparable the physical things that they're involved with are compared to the Torah and the mitzvahs, compared to Hashem Himself. So they have a big yearning to connect to Hashem that comes from the fact they were in a place of darkness and materialism by having to worry about the physical things. So this idea that you come to a much deeper love for Hashem through being involved in the physical world, we said that's like Shabbos. That's the idea of davening and the idea of Shabbos. What's the idea of Shabbos? That 6 days of the week you work, and then Shabbos comes, so you're resting from work, so you have this great enjoyment. It's the same thing in davening, that the whole day you're worried about physical things, and it comes time for davening, you forget about all your physical things, and now you're thinking about Hashem. So you're resting from all those physical matters, and you're enjoying the fact that you have this deep connection to Hashem, and you come to this deep love for Hashem. So that's the idea of Noach. Now the Alter Rebbe is going to explain 2 levels in Noach and 2 levels in Shabbos. So we'll start at the bottom of Tes Amud Aleph. V'zeu sh'nikra mei Noach neicha derucha shu b'chinas ha-Shabbos k'ma shkasiv ki vo Shabbos mikom lachto chulhu shebevav yemei ha-maisa hu b'chinas is pashtus am shachas malchus yisbarach lamata k'moi b'yom harishon nemar v'yimer l'ki mihi or chulu yihira ki atad sheretz desha chulu sh'nikroim yemei ha-maisa v'b'Shabbos hu b'chinas shavisa mei malacha v'neicha derucha shehu aliyah sa'ila maisa maila ka'adam ha-shavus v'nach mei malachtoi k'moi kein hu b'chinas tiras v'esek ha-parnasa b'nyanim gashmim shnekroim mayim rabim k'shemizhabchem oile machakach b'chinas l'okos ayri ha-tefila kanal nikra b'chinas zoi b'chinas neicha derucha shehu b'chinas Shabbos kanal ki yidua shekol tefila mivav yemei ha-maisa hi ha'ara b'chinas Shabbos kanal ach kol zehu b'chinas ach kol zehu Shabbos sita. So that's why the waters of Noach are called Neicha Derucha. That we said that the Mabul was called the waters of Noach. And why is it called the waters of Noach? Because Noach means rest, and it means that you come to enjoyment, Neicha Derucha. And through these waters, through the many waters, you come to this great enjoyment when you rest from them, which that's by davening. They're just like on Shabbos. You have a person stops to work and then he's able to go into himself and have enjoyment, and that's how Hashem made the world. The 6 days of creation, Hashem's life force is coming into creating the world, and on Shabbos everything is returning to its source in Hashem. So the same thing, the person is going into themselves, and that's the same idea as davening, that during the whole day you're involved in what you're doing, and by davening you put aside all of these things that you're doing and you go into yourself and have enjoyment from your connection to Hashem. So that's the first level of Shabbos. What's the higher level of Shabbos? But there's another level of Shabbos which is called the day which is all Shabbos, meaning when Mashiach comes, it's called Yom Shekulo Shabbos Menucha L'Chai Ha'olamim, a day which is completely Shabbos and rest forever. So what does that mean? It means that there's 2 types of rest. One type of rest is you're resting from working, and then you're going to go back to work after. So you just rest in the middle of your work. Then there's another kind of rest. You rest because you don't need to work. In English, I think the word is called retirement. It means you don't need to work anymore. You're patur mimalacha. So the same thing, when Mashiach comes, you're not going to need to work to feel connected to Hashem. You're not going to need to work to overcome the Yetzer Hara. It's going to be rest forever. And that's called that Hashem said you don't need to have Mei Noach forever. The Mabul was only temporary. The Mabul didn't happen forever. It wasn't always continuing the Mabul. The Mabul was for 40 days and 40 nights, and then 1 year. And after that year is over, then you're done. The Mabul was only temporary. So the same thing. These Tiras Harpanasa is only temporary, even though it's longer than 1 year. It's many years. A person has to have Tiras Harpanasa until Mashiach comes, meaning it already was many years. But it's the same idea that it's temporary, because when Mashiach comes, then the rest is going to be forever. Meaning that this higher level of love that you come to for Hashem is also going to be forever. So even though we said that through the Mayim Rabim, through worrying about physical things, that brings a person to his great love, but there's an even deeper love that you can come to, which doesn't come through the waters. It comes from Hashem. It's a gift. And that's what it says. Hashem's right arm hugs me, that He gives me a hug, that He gives it as a gift, this love. When Mashiach comes, we'll feel this love. Like it says, that even when the mountains will fall and the hills will fall, even if the whole world would fall down, but this love doesn't go away. Meaning that we have a love for Hashem which is forever. And this we're going to feel when Mashiach comes. So this love, which is the gift from Hashem, is called V'gava Moed. By Mashiach it says, in the Yaskel Avdi Yom Benisa V'gava Moed, the Mashiach will be very, very high. So it says V'gava Moed. So the simple meaning is that he'll be very high. But here we're saying V'gava Moed, that the Moed, the infinite love for Hashem, the Chol Moedecha, will be much higher. So what does that mean? It means that the love that you can come to for Hashem now comes through your avodah. So you have to work for it. You have to every day daven. That's the first level. That's the first level of Naicha Derucha that comes from davening during this time. When Mashiach comes, you're going to experience the love that you have for Hashem, which isn't just because you're running from the darkness and from the physical existence. You're running to this deep love for Hashem, but because you always had an infinite love for Hashem, but you weren't able to feel it. We find something similar. It says by Yom Kippur that there's two things. There's tshuva in itzuma shel Yom Mechaper. What does that mean? On Yom Kippur, Yid has to do tshuva. And if he does tshuva, then it says the essence of the day atones. What does that mean? That really what atones is the fact that Hashem reveals the essence of your soul, how it's connected to the essence of Hashem. That the essence of your soul is higher than any blemish and any sin. And it's higher than all the bad things a person could ever do. And when that's revealed, automatically it purifies all the levels of the soul. That's called Itzuma Shel Yom Mechaper. And that's a gift from Hashem. That's not something you could do by yourself. It's just you need tshuva so that you shouldn't block out that Itzuma Shel Yom Mechaper from coming into you. You need to do tshuva in order that this revelation of the essence of your soul should be able to come and permeate inside of you. So the same thing, there's a level of love that comes through your own avodah, which comes because you're working to serve Hashem in the time of Gols, in Tiras Harpanasa, and you overcome all these things, and you put yourself together by davening, and you realize how this is the only thing that you really care about. That's one level. But then when Mashiach comes, Hashem will reveal our essential love for Hashem, which was always there, but you could never access it, and Hashem will give it to you as a gift. And that's when Mashiach comes. That's the high level of Shabbos. Just like Shabbos, when Mashiach comes, means that you're not going to have to work anymore. It's going to be Shabbos forever. So too, the love that we'll feel then will also be like forever. Now the Alter Rebbe is going to explain the end of the pasuk. We said many waters can't extinguish the love, and if a person would give all the money in the world in place of this love, then they'll make fun of him because money can't equal love. So we're going to say that the Pirush Pnimi, the inner meaning, is that if Hashem, which that's Hashem Ish Milchama, if he gives the treasures of his house, which the Alter is going to say means the inner meaning of the Torah, the pnimius of Torah, the deeper explanations of the Torah, the way that's taught in Gan Eden. If Hashem would give these treasures of the deep understanding of the Torah in Gan Eden, and you would say that that's better than the love you can have for Hashem here, then you should make fun of that guy. Because why would you want the treasures of the Hashem's house when you could have the king himself? All the understanding in Gan Eden, it's only okay, it's beautiful treasure. But when you're here, you have the king himself. The person will give the treasure of his house for this love. Don't make fun of him. The he said that through the many challenges of making a parnasa, which that's called the Mayim Rabim, not only doesn't extinguish your love, it brings you to a deeper love, to the love of B'chol Ma'idecha. So this love is so great that if a person would give all this money instead of this love, then you make fun of him. So now, what does that mean? What's the inner meaning of that? The treasure of his house means the understanding of the Torah, the explanation and the reasons for the mitzvahs, which comes from Hashem's chachma, from Hashem's wisdom. Where do we see that Hashem gives this inner wisdom? He gives it in Gan Eden, like it says that a river comes from Eden to give water to the garden, which means Eden means Chachma Vatzilus, and Gan means Gan Eden. That Hashem gives this treasure of His wisdom into Gan Eden. Kim Eden Shubachenas Chachma Shnegat Eden Yetzin Arz Lashon Hamshach Alashkas Gan Shehem Gan Sidam Daraisa Shehein Pirush Vatam Mehem Mitzvus Inasa Mehem Bechenes Gan Eden Elyon Vegan in Tachton Ad Shenish Tal Shal Mata Mata Sheshashim Bechenes Chachma Sisbarach Shnekat Reishi Sar Tal Shal Ziner Achval So from Hashem's wisdom, which is expressed in the Torah, in the understanding of the Torah, in Gan Eden Elyon, Gan Eden Tachton, and whatever you can understand of that here in this world, that's incomparable to Hashem Himself. It's only from Hashem's wisdom, which is part of the way that He put Himself in the order of the worlds. Whereas Hashem Himself is much higher than that. This is the So if Hashem, why is it Hashem in this pasuk called Ish? Because Ish means Gevurah v'Tzimtzum. And we're saying that Hashem has to make many tzimtzum. Hashem has to limit His wisdom that it should be able to come down to us. And so however much we can understand, that's only Hashem limited some aspect of His wisdom that it should come. Also we should understand a little bit of it. But it's still not the essence of Hashem. And this love which you have, which is B'chol Ma'idecha, which you are able to feel in this world, that is for the essence of Hashem. It's only for the love you have for Hashem is you don't want anything on heaven or on earth, because everything on earth or in heaven in Gan Eden is only a revelation about Hashem. But since you realize that the only thing you care about is Hashem Himself, so that's what your love is for. And so therefore, if somebody says that he'd rather have mystical understanding instead of being in this world and being Torah mitzvahs, then you should make fun of him. Because why should you want all the treasures of the king's house if you could have the king himself? Okay, so now the Alter is going to say that this is only talking about mystical understanding of the Torah. But the mitzvahs of the Torah and saying words of Torah, that's not only, it's not, the love of Hashem isn't greater than that. That's the only way to come to this love. The only way to come to this great love for the essence of Hashem in this world is through the Torah mitzvahs in this world. So this this that we said, that you can't replace the love of Hashem with this mystical understanding. That's only mystical understanding. But the Torah and the mitzvahs, that's a part of this love, and that's the only way to come to this love. But this is only speaking about the inner meaning of the mitzvahs, which is from the wisdom of the Torah, which comes from Hashem's wisdom. But the mitzvahs himself, like putting on tefillin and sukkah and giving tzedakah, which this is Hashem's will, which is much higher than chachma, much higher than Hashem's wisdom. So the mitzvahs, which are coming from Hashem's will, which is higher than His wisdom, that's why when they came down to this world, they came into something lower than the Torah, than the understanding of the Torah. They came into physical objects that you do the mitzvahs with, because something that has a higher source comes down lower. And like we bring the example that when you have an idea which is very deep, you can't explain it. You can only either say it and a parable for it. But sometimes something is so deep, you can't even give a parable. You can only give a hint. Because using any words or any explanation, still, you can't have any connection to that idea. It's something so deep, you can only give a hint to it. Because something so high can only be expressed in something very low, like a physical action. So, this will, Hashem's will, which is much higher than His wisdom, can only be expressed in the physical mitzvahs. And these mitzvahs that you do in this world, not only the love for Hashem isn't greater than it, but that's connected to and the only way to come to this great love for Hashem. So let's tomorrow we'll finish the mimer and say how this is. You see this in the parsha of Kriyas Shema.